In this podcast, we're going to kind of help you with your English. So if you're feeling sort of frustrated and want to improve your English level, make yourself a nice cup of tea, sit in your favorite armchair, and let us sort of take your English to the next level. Welcome to
Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig.
Hi, I'm Reza.
And my name's Craig.
And with nearly 50 years of teaching between us, we'll help you improve your English and take it to the next level. How are you doing, Craig?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I'm enjoying the sunny weather we're having in Valencia, Spain at the moment. Even though we're technically in the middle of winter, it's really quite nice weather. So I'm in a very good mood because the sun's coming in through the window. How are you?
I'm fine. I agree with you. The weather, it's sort of like an early autumn day rather than a winter's day, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And speaking of weather, let's go to a country on the other side of the planet where it may be a bit warmer than it is over here because they're enjoying their summer. That's Australia and our good friend Alberto, who sent us a voice message.
Hi folks, this is Alberto from Australia. I wanted to add my feedback about the last podcast. Is it too late to save the planet? 70% of the Australian population is quite concerned about climate change, which is really surprising for me as every single family have 2 cars, plus they leave the lights during the night on for a long time. But one thing that they do very well, I think, is that all the kitchen scratches, they just chuck them in the compost bin and then they just throw it in the garden, which I think is quite good for the environment. My wife asked me last time we went to Spain if I was going to consider to give some money to an NGO so the carbon footprint that we were going to use on the flight, it was going to go to another country to develop new technologies as they could use it for climate change. So I think that we can all do things, but it has to be individual actions so the government will take us in consideration. I think that's the main point that we need to do. Not think about the government, think about us. That's all. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much for your message, Alberto. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. Alberto was speaking about an episode we did about climate change, which was inglespodcast.com/387. Is it too late to save the planet? I don't know if you've heard anything recently, Reza, that's come out of the recent Glasgow COP26 conference about climate change. It seems to me like there was a lot of discussion before it and around it when it was going on. Has anything come to your attention that's changed in the way that governments are looking at things?
Well, I must admit I haven't followed it that closely. I mean, the actual conference. Like most people, I think, I heard more about, as you say, people talking around the events. So a lot of people there said it was a failure. A lot of people said that whatever they agreed, they wouldn't do it anyway. But I don't know much about the actual agreements. I'm not sure they did agree anything of any significance.
Yeah, there was lots of talk, or as Greta Thunberg would say, blah, 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 but not many decisions came out of it as far as I'm aware. But going back to Alberto's message, I really liked the expression he used. They chuck them in the compost bin. The compost bin would be where you throw your rubbish. In American English, you might say trash. And chuck, C-H-U-C-K, means to throw. It's an informal word which means to throw. So they chuck them in the compost bin. And Alberto was speaking about the leftover food and things that you don't want in the kitchen. But I think, Alberto, you said kitchen scratches, I think. Better to say kitchen scraps, S-C-R-A-P-S. A scrap of food or a scrap of paper is a piece that's nothing special. So things that you throw away would be scraps of food, or you might give scraps of food to the animals, for example.
Yes, Alberto, I thought your message was really good, but I noticed a couple of things as well we could improve. I think you said, but it may have been the audio quality, I'm not sure. Did you say 70 percentage? I think maybe you did rather than 70%. Possibly not, but anyway, let me mention it just in case you did. So you don't say a number with percentage. You just say percent. 70%, 20%, 15%. You talk about a percentage, but you never say a number with percentage. So you would just say 70%. Another thing I heard was you said, I think that your wife asked you to consider to give some money
to charity,
charity to help protect the planet in some way. I can't remember the details. Consider to give. No. Consider giving. Consider plus ing. Consider giving would be the right way to say that, Alberto.
And speaking of that episode 387 on climate change, the person who gave us the idea and motivation to create the episode, Rafa, did send us an email after that episode was published, and Rafa wrote in his email, "We should at least be aware of the real situation of our home, and we should at least try to push all these politicians and big companies to do their best. No blah 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 to save the planet for our descendants, since it's not ours anymore." And he continues, "Maybe we're not the ones to save or change the world, but at least we can imagine, as in John Lennon's song. I believe in people, the ones like Greta, with energy to change things, to gather others around and fight against the establishment, and we the rest, unable to do many things, should respect and support them." And I do agree 100% with what Rafa wrote there. And thanks very much for sending that follow-up email, Rafa.
Me too, Rafa. I totally agree with your sentiments.
Moving on, let's go over to Colombia now and a voice message from Edier.
Hello, Craig. Hello, Reza. My name's Edier. I'm from Colombia. I'm very happy because you have done a great job when you correct all the mistakes that some people made when they send you a video or an audio. So I'm very happy because your topics are very interesting. So I have learned and I have noticed that I've improved my English language. So congratulations. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Edier. It's lovely to hear from you all the way from Colombia. We're very pleased that you're listening. And noticed I said I'm very pleased because you said I'm very happy twice. It might be an idea to try and vary your vocabulary a little and try and use different words so that you're not repeating the same words. So instead of I'm very happy, you could say I'm very pleased, or I feel great, or even I'm over the moon. I'm really, really happy. And instead of very happy, you could say extremely, which is a different adjective. I'm extremely pleased, or I'm extremely happy.
And Eddie, I'm delighted that you have learned English as a result of listening to our podcast. But I can't resist one little correction. I'm pretty sure I heard you say the word peoples. Was it just me, Craig, or did he put an S?
I think I heard an S, yeah.
So people is already the plural of person. So if you want to say personas, it's just people without an S, Eddie.
Unless you're talking about cultural groups, for example, the peoples of the Amazon or the rainforest peoples.
That's true. That's a different meaning, yeah. But I don't think he meant that here.
No.
Yeah.
No, more commonly, it would be one person, two people. Next, we have a message from Italy, from Francesca, who has some lovely things to say about her cat.
Hi guys, I am Francesca from Italy and I'm fond of your podcasts since they keep me company in many different situations. Anyway, coming back to what you have discussed in your previous podcast, I would like to add one good thing which came out of COVID-19. In fact, when in 2020 going out from our home was strictly forbidden, I had the opportunity to strengthen my relationship with my pet. I have a wonderful grey long hair cat, and we played a lot of beautiful and funny games. Before the pandemic, I used to be always out and about. Now I have more balanced life, and I'm really grateful for it. However, I am studying for my Cambridge Advanced exam, and I would love any useful tips from you. Thank you. Bye.
Well, thank you very much for your message, Francesca. Greetings to you and your cat. I hope you're both doing very well. And can I say that your pronunciation was very, very good and that I understood absolutely everything that you said. There is one little thing, though, that I think you got wrong, but I could be wrong. You talked about playing funny games with your cat, but I think you mean fun games. I don't think you mean funny, because funny is humorous. I think you mean fun, entertaining. That's a typical mistake. So I hope you and your cat are having good fun together.
Did you notice the lovely way Francesca described her cat? She said a grey, long-haired cat. Lovely use of adjectives there. And another thing I liked about Francesca's message was the expression out and about, which is a very nice way of just saying outside, when I go out, when I'm out and about. So the expression is to be out and about. Very nice.
Francesca, you like the podcast. What about your cat? Does your cat like it? I'm interested to know.
And does your cat react when Coco is doing the podcast with us? What do you think, Coco, about cats listening to the podcast? Any opinion? Thank you, Coco. Francesca was referring to the podcast we did on the coronavirus pandemic, 10 positive things from the COVID-19 pandemic. If you want to listen to that with or without your cat, go to inglespodcast.com/388. Rezo, any advice for Francesca on the advanced C1 exam?
There are several good websites where you can get good free practice of the exam format, and also some tutorials, some little video clips about advice and strategies for doing the exam. One which I often refer students to is called flojo.com. I'd better spell that because it's FLO and then hyphen, a little line. Not the one which is at the bottom underscore, but the one which is raised up a little bit, hyphen, FLO dash or hyphen dot joe.co.uk.
Flojo is a very good website for different levels. Also for B2, it's very effective. But I don't think there are any listenings on Flojo. If you need to do listening practice, here's a website for you, Francesca. Examenglish.com has some listening comprehension exam-based exercises. And I will list those addresses in the show notes, and you can find the show notes to this episode at inglespodcast.com/395. And there's one more I'll mention specifically for writing. It's writeandimprove.com, and it's a Cambridge website that will check your writing by AI, artificial intelligence, and it's pretty good. It's completely free. It gives you an idea of how you're doing with your writing. You have questions, exam questions on their website. You answer the question, and then you get feedback on your grammar, your spelling, your punctuation, your collocation, etc. So you could try that, and I will also include that link in the show notes.
One more piece of advice for Francesca and everybody. A lot of people don't know it, but you can find quite a lot of examples of candidates doing the speaking exam on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and write in the search box, write For example, in your case, it's advanced, all right? C1 Cambridge speaking, and you'll get at least 3 or 4, maybe 5 or 6 examples of people doing the speaking. Make sure you only use the official Cambridge ones. You'll recognize them because they have the Cambridge logo there. And some of them have interactive scripts. Not all of them, but some of them have interactive scripts. So what you do is you go below the video screen and you can click on comments and it brings you to the part of the video that coincides with the script, and they're very, very handy just to see what it's really like to do a speaking exam. So you get them on YouTube.
Next, we have a voice message from Christopher from Costa Rica.
Hi, Race and Craig. I'm Christopher from Costa Rica. This is my first time to send you a message, so I'm a little nervous. Well, I don't know if you've already talked about this, but it's something that I've been wondering, and it's when to use kind of and sort of. Actually, I know what it means, but I don't use it at all. I've noticed that in series and movies the characters use this phrase a lot, but despite of having the context and knowing what it means, I don't get it totally. So that's my question. Thank you so much and have a good day. Thank you.
Well, I don't know why you were nervous, Christopher. Your English is absolutely fantastic. An excellent message, and thank you so much for sending it to us. And please send us more, because we'd love to hear from you again. Any comments, Reza?
Yes, I agree with you, Craig. I thought it was a very good message. No reason to be nervous at all. You should be proud of your English. One thing, though, you did say this is my first time to send. But the structure is, this is my first time, or it could be your second, your third, your fifth, or your 100th time. This is my first time sending. Yeah, better with ing. This is my first time sending a message. Also, you said despite of, but we don't say of with despite. So despite having, not despite plus of. You're probably mixing up in spite of with despite.
And you're right, Christopher. We do hear those two expressions, kind of, sort of. We hear them a lot in films, movies, TV series. So I do like that question. And one way that those expressions are used fairly frequently is when we use a vague language, when we don't want to be exact with what we're saying. And I want to refer you and anybody else interested in vague language to episode 128, in which Reza and I did a very deep dive, which means we looked very closely at lots of ways we can be vague or not precise in English. So that might be useful for you, Christopher. Go to inglespodcast.com/128. But let's look at kind of and sort of in detail. Reza, what can they mean? When do we use them?
Well, kind of and sort of can mean not exactly, but a little. For example, you could say, I'm sort of hungry, which means I'm not really, really hungry. I mean, it's not like I can't think of anything else but food, or like I must eat right now, but I would eat if there was a bit of food being offered, I would eat it. So I'm sort of hungry.
Another example with kind of, you could say, oh, she's kind of annoying. Now, that doesn't mean that she's extremely annoying and she really does get on your nerves. No, it just means that maybe I could use a bit here. I could say she's a bit annoying, or she's kind of annoying, isn't she?
Or what about if someone just doesn't quite look their normal self? You know, you can tell that something's bothering them. Yeah, they're troubled by something. You might say, you look kind of miserable. So I can't exactly say what it is. You don't look like you're about to die or anything like that, but you look kind of miserable.
And we often use kind of and sort of when we want to soften language, make language less direct and make it softer. Say, for example, I haven't heard from Reza for 2 months, which would be unusual. I might be a little bit upset, which means it's bothering me slightly. So I could say, Reza, I'm sort of upset that you haven't been in touch lately. So I'm softening the effect of being upset or being angry that he hasn't been in touch, and I'm using sort of or kind of to make the language a lot softer. Can you think of another example?
Here's one with kind of. I could say, I'm sorry, I've been busy. That could be my answer for not being in touch with Craig, right? I'm sorry, I've been busy. But if I add kind of, if I say, I'm sorry, I've been kind of busy, I'm making it sound a bit more indirect, not so confrontational. It kind of avoids. You notice I said kind of there instinctively. It just came out. I didn't even plan that. It kind of avoids confrontation by putting in the words kind of, sort of. Like you're indicating that you don't want to be confrontational. No problem.
Reza, you know I've started another diet recently.
Oh, and has this new diet helped you at all?
Oh, kind of, I guess. Kind of. So not really, but a little bit. A little.
Craig, would you agree that sometimes people use kind of and sort of sarcastically?
Yeah, as many things can be used. We like sarcasm in English. We do use a lot of sarcastic language. You could say, for example, when I discovered that my ex-wife had run off with all my money and her new lover, I was kind of a bit annoyed, shall we say. So I was extremely annoyed. I was very, very annoyed. But I'm using kind of here to soften it, and I'm using a bit to soften it more to be sarcastic. I was kind of a bit annoyed that my wife took all my money and ran away.
In other words, he was incredibly annoyed. The meaning here is quite the opposite of the normal meaning of kind of. So instead of a bit, it's the opposite of a bit. A bit like, imagine someone asks me for money. They want me to lend them money. And I say, well, I'd love to lend you some money, but it's sort of tricky since I'm about to go bankrupt, as you can imagine. So how can I lend you money? So it's sort of tricky. Obviously, it's impossible. If I'm about to go bankrupt, I can't lend money to anybody. So putting in the sort of, it makes it, shall we say, sarcastically, like less abrupt. Instead of me just saying, no way, are you crazy? I'm about to go bankrupt. Say, it's sort of tricky,
Reza, recently you just said kind of naturally, without planning it, without thinking. Now, I was a little surprised because when I think of kind of and sort of, I sort of think of kind of as more American usage and sort of as maybe more British English usage. But now I think about it, I'm not so sure. What do you think? Are they interchangeable?
Well, we have to be even more selective than that. I'm fairly sure that in Ireland, people say kind of more than sort of. It may be different in England, but in Ireland, we definitely use kind of more than sort of. Yeah. Do you think in England, maybe it's kind of more of a mixture?
Do
you notice I said it again? I didn't plan it.
Yeah, you said
it's kind of more of a mixture. I promise that wasn't planned. It just came out.
And it's so natural that I didn't notice you'd said it. I was thinking about it before we started recording, and my initial thoughts was that sort of would be more British English, but I'm not so sure. I think you could use them equally. I think they're interchangeable from where I come from in the south of England.
Maybe they don't use sort of much in America. They nearly always use kind of there, right?
Yep.
But in the UK and Ireland, we mix a bit. Yeah, would you say maybe?
Yep, I'd agree with that. But one thing it's very important to notice is because we have the word of in both of these expressions, kind of and sort of, very often of becomes weak when it's in connected speech. So the pronunciation of sort of would be sorta, and kind of would be kinder. Of becomes very weak. If I say the sentence, would you like a bit of cake? The of almost disappears. That of becomes so weak, a bit of cake. You almost can't hear it. And a similar thing happens with kind of and sort of. The of gets very, very weak. Sorta, kinder. And one more point, using kind of and sort of can make you sound a little bit insecure and hesitant. For example, at the beginning of this podcast, if you remember, Reza said, in this podcast, we're going to kind of help you with your English. So if you're feeling sort of frustrated and want to improve your English level, make yourself a nice cup of tea, sit in your favourite chair, and let us sort of take your English to the next level. So if you want to sound like an expert and very sure and self-assured of yourself, if you're speaking about your field of work, for example, keep away from these expressions. Don't use these expressions because they can make you sound hesitant. Imagine you go to the doctor, for example, and the doctor is speaking about an operation. And the doctor says, yeah, well, I kind of removed the patient's heart and then I sort of connected it to the machine. It doesn't sound very reassuring. Or if Reza and I said, well, we've been kind of teaching English for nearly 50 years. We don't sound very sure of what we're actually doing. So they can make you sound hesitant and not sure of yourself. But they are very, very common expressions.
That's why they can be good to question people who are supposed to be the experts when you aren't. You know how somebody might be giving a talk about something you think you understand, but you don't want to seem like a smart arse, a sábelo todo. So you say to them, are you saying that this sort of means blah, blah, blah? But you think you know perfectly what it means, but you want to kind of show, you want to kind of show, a bit of humility. And by saying, is it kind of like blah, blah, blah? Or are you sort of saying it shows that like you're saying you're the expert, I'm just checking.
Yeah, you're softening your opinion.
So the expert should avoid saying kind of, sort of. But if you want to kind of show your respect to the expert, you use kind of or sort of to show like, I'm not really the expert here, you are.
So Christopher, I hope we've kind of answered your question. I hope we've sort of answered your question. And now it's your turn to practice your English. We would love to hear from you and find out where you're from and where you're listening to us. If you have a question or any doubts about the English language, send us a voice message. You can do that by going to speakpipe.com. That's speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast. Emails, Reza?
Yeah, if you want to write, you can write to us. You write to Craig. His address is craig@inglespodcast.com, or me, belfastreza@gmail.com.
And on the online store over at store.manginingles.net, you'll find a selection of courses for sale that will help you improve your English even further.
As always, we'd like to say thank you to all those who are helping us through the Patreon scheme, Patreon. What is the Patreon scheme? Well, it's sort of like a way of donating money, but not exactly, because you get something in return. So people who donate $1.20 is the minimum, because we need 20 cents to cover the VAT tax. As a thank you, we let them have access to recent audio transcriptions.
We unfortunately cannot mention everybody who's subscribing to our Patreon program because we don't have time on this podcast, but we will say thank you to our most recent Patreon supporters who have joined us this month. They are Marianne, thank you. Silvia Escartin Garcia, thank you to you. Rosa Campos, thanks very much. Aurora, thank you. Salvador Cuadrado Olvera, thank you. Uziv, thanks a lot. Jordi Casanovas Masip, thank you. And Luis, thank you too. And extra special thanks to Tatiana Vasquez, Perla Jimenez, and Raquel Sanchez, who are donating more than the $1 minimum. Thank you so much to you and to everyone who's supporting us on Patreon. What's next week, Reza?
Next week, we're talking about customer service and call center expressions.
So if you do work in customer service or you need to answer the phone in English, that's a good episode for you to listen to. Thank you very much for listening this week. Until next time, it's goodbye from me.
And it's bye-bye from me.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.